When has your gut instinct saved your life? Or helped you avoid something horrible? I was about 11. And this neighborhood man started kind of hanging around my friends and me sometimes. He was friendly and would buy us junk food from 7 to 11. My little friend crowd was mostly boys and it wasn't unusual for me to be the only girl with them. This man started inviting them over for snacks. Would give them money for 7 to 11. etc. And they thought he was the greatest thing. I got a creepy feel and didn't like how he seemed to look at me more than the boys. So I never went to his house. Creep started bringing gifts to my house for me until my mom answered the door one day and told him to hit the road and never come back. The next we heard of him was in the newspaper because he was serving time for interfering with a minor. He sent his victim a Valentine's card from there. I'm grown up now and I really hope that piece of speep is long dead. I escaped him ruining my childhood. But some other little girl didn't. I think about that sometimes. I'm glad you escaped him. I'm very sad and angry that the other girl wasn't able to. I always remember the sickish feeling I got when I recognized predatory looks from men. When I was a child, I always wondered if others felt that same sickly, melty black sludge in the pit of your stomach when you see them stare at you with glazed, shiny eyes. It was such a distinct feeling, like an animal instinct of danger. I was 7 years old. It was about 4:00 p.m. I was home from school. But my father had yet to get back from work. I was upstairs in my room playing Crash Bandicoot. And my alcoholic mother was downstairs, sprawled out on the couch with a bottle of Bacardi in her hand. And I knew she'd soon start the daily process of hiding her bottles, blitzing her mouth with mouthwash, drinking a coffee to further cover her breath, etc. Usually I'd just stay in my room until my dad got home and called me to dinner. But that day, I felt a sudden urge to go check on my mother to see if everything was okay. I crept downstairs. And sure enough, she was sprawled out on the sofa with a cigarette in one hand and the Bacardi in the other. I walked down the hall to the kitchen and as soon as I stepped into the room, the smell of gas hit me. I didn't know what the smell was at the time, but I somehow knew it was bad. So I ran back to my mom in the lounge and told her we needed to go out the front of the house because there was a poisonous smell in the air. In her half-conscious stupor, she let me lead her by the hand out the front door. And when we were outside, she asked me to repeat what I'd said. I told her there was a poisonous smell in the kitchen. I think she sort of sobered up quite quickly when she realized what had happened. She'd left the gas on the stove. The kitchen, and half the hallway, was filled with gas. She threw down her cigarette and stomped it out, dusted herself off, handed me the Bacardi, and told me to stay outside. She went in, turned the gas off, and opened all the windows. My dad arrived home as all this was happening, and he saw me stood outside, holding the Bacardi bottle. He was completely perplexed, as he thought she'd managed to kick the habit after a successful detox course 6 months earlier. I never told him because she threatened me with stuff about mommy leaving if I did. After that, she left anyway, because they got divorced and my dad got custody of me. Dr. Alcoholic mom almost blew up the house with a cigarette stove gas extravaganza. Quite literally a gut feeling actually. I was on the bus commuting to my university and began to feel extremely bloated. So I decided to get off. Turns out it was a relatively good move. Because as soon as I got off the bus I began furiously speepting myself. And I mean like full-on ass-blasting diarrhea. Of course it didn't really help me avoid speepting myself, but it helped me not embarrass myself by turning the bus into an ass bomb that day. I pulled up to the corner of Audubon Boulevard and Fountainbleu Drive. A four-way stop. I'm reading towards the river, and I look to my left and right. After coming to a full stop, and see no one. But, instead of going, I almost heard a voice in my head say, "Stop and take a drink of your drink." I didn't hear a voice, but I felt this oddly strong prompting in my mind's inner dialogue to take a drink of my drink. As I'm reaching down to grab it, a car flies through that intersection going as fast as you possibly could on that street. It would have crashed right into me on my side, and likely killed me or F'd me and my toddler daughter in the car seat behind me up for good. When we ran out of screw-in fuses for the fuse box, I was told it was okay to insert a copper penny as a temporary fix until some replacement fuses could be purchased. When I smelled insulation melting on overheated wires in the wall, I knew that the advice I'd been given was wrong and dangerous. So I immediately pulled the main fuse for the entire house until new screw-in fuses could be bought. That simple act likely saved burning down the house due to a potential electrical fire. My grandpa one day asked me if I wanted to sleep in his bed with him. I was 9. I said no because I had a bad day and wanted to go to bed early. A year later I found out he was a registered sex offender. Dodged a thick beeping bullet right there. I'd asked for days off to see The Dark Knight in theaters. I had the seniority at my retail job to get the days off and asked 3 weeks in advance for the days. The scheduling manager hated me and didn't give me the days off. I'd really wanted to save beep it and go anyway and just go to work on 4 hours or less of sleep. The say rolled around and my gut instinct told me to just go to bed and to see the movie the next week. Had I gone that night I would have been in the Aurora theater James Holmes had been in. I'd had 3 friends in the theater that all lived, but multiple co-workers lost friends or family. My dad heard the news break when it happened. He worked nights out of his truck and heard it on the radio and called my mom frantic to check I was in bed and hadn't gone to the theater since he knew I loved Batman and wouldn't shut up about the movie. I'm glad I went to bed. I saw the movie when it was released to DVD. I couldn't bring myself to see it in a theater. So it was during the Easter holidays. Me and my family live in a block of flats. I was 10. And we were the last ones to leave, so we were all alone in the building. We were going to the garage to get the car and my family, all 4 of them, took the elevator. I however decided to take the stairs cause I had this fear in the back of my head that I might get stuck in there. And while I was walking down the stairs I hear a voice from the elevator shaft. It was stuck and all my family was in it. Long story short, they managed to fill me up with courage and I went out asking strangers for help. Me, a 10-year-old. Thankfully a lady helped me and called 911 and were able to get my family out of the elevator. I still take the stairs whenever we are leaving for a family trip. My ex-girlfriend and I were driving home late at night from a concert. It was about a 3-hour drive. So it was probably somewhere around 2 a.m. It was mid-January and was snowing pretty heavily. She was going around 70 miles per hour. I don't know why. But I asked her to slow down. She slowed to around 35 miles per hour and not a minute or 2 later we had to slam on our brakes because there was a semi jackknifed across both lanes. The brakes locked up and we slid through the slush and only stopped about 15 feet short of the trailer. If I hadn't asked her to slow or if she hadn't listened, I would have likely been a head shorter. I was walking home from work one night last week and I could hear footsteps behind me. I was on the phone to my partner at the time, like I do when I have to walk home alone at night. The footsteps start getting louder and when I crossed the road I could hear this person running and saw them out of the corner of my eye, seemingly towards me. So I turn around and look right at them, which seems to startle them, and they ran in front of me and kept walking. I slow right down at this point and just watch them, describing very loudly to my partner what this man looks like and what he was doing. He was acting very shifty. Crossing the road over and over when he didn't need to and constantly looking back at me. I hid behind some bushes and waited for him to go out of sight after that, then carried on home. Pretty sure he was planning on mugging/attacking me. I saw him again when I walked home last night, but I wasn't alone this time. Still pretty freaked out tbh. When has your gut instinct saved your